Good evening, everybody.
Good
Good
evening.
evening. Hey, Dr. Lamb, I wanted to let you know that I still am not able to see Catherine's
Competency folio.
stuff. Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
we're going to have to Zoom to get that fixed. We've had a couple of those issues.
Okay.
I hate to say this, but the last one, it was a internet provider issue on the part of the person trying to get in. Probably not yours, but since you're in, a fairly populated area of the state, but we'll have to sit down and look and see why you're not able to see that work in the competent. Do you see anything?
Now, I mean, I see, I think Helen has sent me hers, and I can't remember who else, and I've been able to do all theirs, but I've not been able. I got the email from Catherine, but I've not been able to see her portfolio.
Yeah. So what we'll do is, if you've got a few minutes when we get done tonight, we'll look at that. I'll let you share your screen, and we'll see if we can figure out why that's not working.
So, Catherine, if you're up here, that's the reason why you've not heard back from me. I cannot get yours.
Been a constant problem. All right. So
Now, Dr. Caton, who was that you did not get?
What?
I mean, I got an email that said Catherine Silver. Is she yours? Because if so, because I got the email.
I did hers because she's mine. Because I got the email too.
That's why then, and as soon as she goes in, it knocks you out. It defaults to her.
Oh, I thought it would just email me mine. Okay, well then good, perfect. Then
well, I set you both up, and whichever one goes in first, TaskStream will default to them from now on.
Okay, because last semester I only got mine. This semester,
but I put you both in for both of them this time. That's the difference.
I've only gotten.
Whenever they popped up, y'all could just grab them.
Okay, I've only gotten Cammie and Cyrus. So if anybody else is having any problems, just let us know, because those are the only two TaskStream emails I've gotten.
That's why you're not seeing it. Okay. Because I went back and double checked to make sure y'all were both in for both sections. Again, this is two collapsed sections, and so I went back and did that, but so that it won't cross. It just lets one of you do it. So that's good. That's all.
Okay, good. I thought I was doing something wrong.
No. I said it's probably us on our end. That's what's been lately. Well, I hope everybody's doing well. We're getting near the end here. I'll get through with our housekeeping things, and we'll try not to keep you in an inordinate amount of time tonight. So let me share my screen and get started. First thing we want to look at always is our weekly schedule. So we're at week 9, 10. So we're at week 10, session 9. And so your activity for this week was examine a school or school district field trip policy. What would you take if the bus rear-ends a car? And then we'll do that one first. First thing is call 911. You're not a doctor. Even if you think nobody's hurt, doesn't matter. Call 911. Get emergency personnel there. You won't. Somebody's going to ask you in court. When you're sued for malpractice. Where you got your medical degree, that you were able to diagnose people on the fly like that. So call 911. Yes, it'll make a scene. Yes, it'll be on the news. Yes, people will probably be perturbed, but no, you won't lose your job, and you won't be liable for a lawsuit from somebody that's hurting down the road. You call 911. Kid goes home, got a pump on his head, and then he has trouble later on. That's not you. So make sure you call 911. Now, the biggest part of this is dealing with the media. The media will show up, especially if you're in a fairly urban area. The media will show up before the ambulance does. And the media knows they're not supposed to talk to people, but they will. They know they're not supposed to film kids, but they will. They'll try to get you to make a statement knowing that you're supposed to, knowing they're not supposed to, that you're supposed to go through your public information office, but they will anyway. You cannot trust the media. I don't care if they're in your household. You cannot trust the media, period. That's who they are. Their job is to get the story. That they have to break the rules. They don't care. That it costs you your job. They don't care. You better know that. So part of what they will do is they will eavesdrop when you're talking with parents on the phone or whatever, and then they'll act like you gave them those comments. They're pretty sneaky about stuff like that. So you need to be very careful. I know that parents will be calling or you and trying to, you're trying to allay their fears, but you better make sure you're not earshot of the media, because they will take what you say as the gospel. They will print it, they will publish it, they will have it on breaking news. So you understand that your district has a policy that you don't speak to the media ever. It's always go through the public information office. I don't care if they can sit and watch and you can say, well, you can see what, it doesn't matter. You do not talk to the media ever without going through public information office. Now, the media will not play fair. They'll be tricky. They'll do ugly things. I'll just tell you right now, they'll do ugly things. I'm going to change over to something kind of unrelated, but related. Let's see, here it is. This gentleman right here was the evening anchor on WBTV in Charlotte, and he was the announcer at the Panthers game. And he was the cock of the walk in Charlotte. He was the toast of the town. But he was also a heroin addict and a cocaine addict. And it finally caught up with him. But during his heyday, he was drunk or high most of the time and didn't put the work in. But he would call you and threaten you to get stories rather than doing the background and doing the work. He was notorious for those kinds of things. His best friend and running mate was the youngest son of the Panthers owner, and so he felt like he was untouchable. He called me one time trying to get a story out of me, and I won't say to you what I said to him, but suffice it to say, it did not go well for him being on the other end of that conversation. But what I am telling you is for some reason we have this notion that the media will be fair or even-handed, or that that they're squared away people. This is an awful story. He's still on the street. That you can see there's all these different ones. Drug addict, living on the street. As far as I know, he's relapsed, and I don't know what he's doing now. But I mean, I hate that for him. But my point is, he had no moral center, no ethical center whatsoever. It did not bother him a bit to try to blackmail you or leverage you to get stories. And so the best policy is it's always no comment, talk to public information. I don't care what it is. Well, I want to do this positive story, and if I got to talk to them so they'll do my positive story. No, you don't. No, you don't. That's a road you don't want to start down. I'm just going to tell you right now. So later on, when something happens, you can say, "Well, Dale told me so." Don't that if you lie down with dog, you're gonna get fleas. I'm just going to tell you, it's not going to end up well for you. So we'll go to our two resident principals for any comments they'd like to add to that opener.
Well,
go ahead.
I was just going to say, I would completely agree with that. CMS has a whole department, fortunately for us, that they handle the media. And not only do you not speak to anyone in the media directly, but nothing comes out of the school regarding any sort of incident that occurs that we handle. Anything that comes out, whether it's a letter or a statement or a phone call to parents, that comes from our department that handles that. They write it up and everything, and we might actually make the phone call in our voice, but we don't do any of that. They handle it. Everything is filtered through them. And so it's actually kind of nice that they take that off of you, but you've just got to be very careful. And even if they're trying to act innocent with you and just asking a little innocent question, you never know where that's going to go. And you also have to be careful that they will report stories that that you never made a statement for, because I'm very aware of a situation at a magnet school where twins would not be put into a classroom together, which is fine. That's what worked best for that school. And before the legislature said that you couldn't do that anymore, when a parent wanted to complain about it, the writer did not get a comment from the principal, but went ahead with the story and just went one-sided with what the parent said. And, that didn't look the greatest either. So just don't ever trust the media. Don't talk to them.
And I just wanted to also add a little bit that know that your local newspaper, as well as your media, local news reporters are also trolling police reports. And if you have an incident on your campus, they will reach out or try to reach out to you to see what it was all about. So that's for us, however, in Pitt County, we've done a really good job with our public informant officer that she's trained them, that everything goes through her. But there are some new ones once in a while that will try to sneak in and will try to get your opinion or get your statement about certain things that have happened. So just be aware of that as well, that any kind of police reports, they are scanning that and looking for that, because that's a big story if something happens at a school.
And if they show up on campus, you need to call and let someone at the district level be aware that you've got media on campus.
Now, they're not supposed to come on your campus during the school day unless they're invited.
Right, but they'll
show up.
They will impact your carpool line.
Yeah.
If you've got a large carpool line in the morning or the afternoon, it's just always good if they ever are sniffing around to let someone at the district level know so that they can provide you any support that you may need. Just don't ever feel like you have to do this alone, because believe me, they don't want you handling any of this alone. They want everything filtered through the district level.
Cammy was talking about they'll go to the jail. Yeah, they'll troll the scanners and the police reports. They'll go to jail and try to catch you there. That's right. They'll do that. Now, you notice that a lot of times if you get your news from the bigger cities, that a lot of times when they talk to parents, you notice the parents are in cars. That's because they're out stopping the car line before it goes into the school. They're notorious for that in Charlotte. And then I got a call one day when I was in central office and I had to go over to West Charlotte. They had, I don't know what was going on. They had a substitute or something. They had several substitutes, and it looked like they were having field day out in the front yard. And the news media was right across the street just filming it for News at 6. And so now you can't do anything about that. That they went out in the front yard rather than the backyard. They had fields in the back, but the sub took them out in the front where the news media could film it. Well, that's the kind of thing that they'll do. That was a good story for them. And so the notion here is somebody says, why don't you teach these folks media relations? There is no media relations. What we teach you is no, there is none. That goes to a different department, and it's not, when it's convenient. Every day, every incident goes through your public information office, always. No exception. No time, no how, no way, no exception. All right, so that's the thing to remember is call 911. You're not a doctor, and don't talk to the media. All right, and then reflect on the fact that educators have been financially responsible. Injured student provide the professional led to the injury. Again, it goes back to our 3 standards: misfeasance, malfeasance, nonfeasance. And you got to understand that you're now there is liability for you personally, not just through the district and the school. They can sue you if you didn't do the right thing. And so we all know that. All right, so was our discussion board this week, and that will conclude our discussion boards. You should be at the point where you're finishing up your OMA. We got a couple of those still out. You got to wrap that up. Next week is our last case study. The good doctors will be running class next week, case studies, and they're going to be rougher on you than I am. So next week, Kitty's group will go first, then Heather's group, then Matt's group, and then America's group. We'll go in that order, because that's everybody will have a chance to go first, second, third, and fourth. why we divide into 4 groups. And so they'll be running things next week. I'll just be watching and trying to learn something. Remember, next week is all inclusive of everything that we've done this semester. Everything we've done touches the case study next week. It's very complex, a lot of things, a lot of moving parts, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of law, a lot of policy, a lot of best practices, a lot of ethical things going on in next week's. So give it the time and attention it deserves. Finish strong. Y'all have done a great job on your case studies. You've come along very far. Remember, don't look at it from the lens of a teacher. Don't just take the teacher's side and, she's doing what she thinks is best. Make sure you understand we're looking at this through the lens of the administrator. There's equal blame to be passed around the one next week. So, make sure you understand that and look at it from all facets of everything that we've done this year or this semester. All right. So our activities for tonight, the first thing I want to get out of the way is sexual harassment. That kind of concludes. That's become the biggest thing. And I always reserve the last week for whatever I think is the hot topic of the now. So let me close that out. And so the hot topic of the now is sexual harassment, sexual assault, sexual offenses, and not that it's not bad enough that they're happening, but what makes them worse is we're now involved in the cover-up. That's become the thing now, is threatened, just like Dr. Miraglia was talking last week about what's going on at Myers Park, where they're claiming that they threatened the girls when they wanted to report what was happening. It's exactly what happened in this case that I had pulled last semester. This is out of Colorado. So what this one did is the assistant principal not only failed to report the student's sexual assault allegations to the police department, instead suspended the girl and forced her to apologize to her abuser and made him hug him at the end of the meeting. I mean, folks, that's beyond the pale, but that's what's going on now. We're getting more and more, and these cases are coming now. I don't think it's a henny penny or a copycat. Quite truthfully, and I could be wrong, I think these cases are happening. I've been around school business for a little over 40 years now. And I can tell you, it's prevalent. It has been. It was a lot worse when I was first teaching. There was a lot more of, especially in high schools, of inappropriate relationship with faculty and students. It's been going on for a long time. I had a case that I reported in the early 90s when I was a principal. As crazy as it sounds, the person who I had a vendor in the Horace Mann insurance agent asked one of the teachers out, and they were meeting after school. How they make appointments, meet after school. She wasn't the one. She said yes and went out with him. Another teacher overheard it and filed a complaint. But the thing to do, even though it was kind of ridiculous, I thought, the teacher, the young teacher that was asked, she was willing, and the teacher that heard it was eavesdropping on a private conversation, but it didn't matter. You got to follow through. So these kinds of things go on all the time. It's gotten worse at Myers Park this week. Dr. Miraglia, you want to give us an update on Myers Park this week?
I'm going to be honest with you, Dr. Lamb. I have not seen anything this week.
The superintendent, Ernest, came out and he spoke to it this week. He finally spoke to the media.
Yeah, because nothing has been.
No, nothing happened, but, he's been stonewalling the media.
Well, that last week the federal education secretary was visiting and Alma Adams was showing him around. And that topic came up in front of the national. That was real classy. Yeah. So what did he say?
So what it did is, because of that, it forced him to have to do an interview on camera. And he did that. What's today? Wednesday. He did that Monday. I saw it Monday. That was appointment TV. I had to watch this. He commiserated with them and said things were done, inappropriately, and he felt for them. And he said all, his well-crafted, statement. He didn't say what he was going to do about it, but he finally had to acknowledge that it was a thing. See, they've been stonewalling from the superintendent's office.
Nothing has come out.
Exactly. So he finally had to go on camera and acknowledge that it happened, that he had talked, and he said that he had talked with the actual victims. Now, I don't know how that, but he said, so he is now taking action is what he's saying. And so he's gone from nothing to see here, what incidents, to he now says it happened and that he will deal with it. So we'll see what happens now. But that was a big change. That happened Monday.
And this has been going on for a while.
Oh, it's been going on since I was in high school. What are you talking about?
But I meant just this particular story.
Yeah, this one is started in 2017. Some of them go, this particular one goes back 4 years. And it's kind of like one every year, for the last 4 years.
And the media being on this has been going on now for long enough that, I guess it's time that something was said.
It may take a while. When I was in high school, the kids at Myers Park could leave at lunch and go get lunch. They had an hour. And this kind of thing was going on in the woods, cars, 50 years ago, folks. This was going on. But it's gotten worse, and it's continued, and the school really hasn't done anything about it over the years other than, try to put a lid on it. This is the same school that called students in when they turned 18 and told them they were no longer students if they weren't going to graduate that semester, and put them out. And the Charlotte Post, the African-American newspaper in town, ran that story for 18 months before the mainstream media finally picked it up. But the point of that is it'll eventually come out. It will eventually come back and get you. It might take a while, and there might be powerful people on your side, but eventually, if you cover these things up and if you threaten the victims and you don't follow through, especially on the sexual stuff, if you don't call the police, we're going to handle it in house. We'll do our own investigation. Again, just like in court, you don't want to explain where you got your medical degree. You don't want to explain where you got your forensic training to be a sexual assault investigator either. You don't want to have to answer those questions in court. You are not qualified to do investigations of a sexual nature. Whether it's harassment or assault, doesn't matter. Don't do it. Talk to your SRO or to the person assigned to your building. And if they don't see a crime there and have you go, then and only then.
Well, is the Booster Club fiasco at South Meck the reason they have a new principal?
That is correct.
Okay, because I forgot to bring that up a few weeks ago, but that's also something very relevant to what we've been talking about in class. That, again, you can be held responsible for what happens. And I would imagine, that Booster Club stuff's been going on for years and years and years, but
yes.
that principal had only been there for 2 years.
But the amount of money, what was it, $250,000?
Yes, it was an astronomical amount of money.
Yeah, $250,000 made it felony. And so even though it had been going on forever and ever and ever, in especially in media hot spots like Charlotte, there must be blood. That's what we would say. That means in order to get the story to go away, somebody has to go home. And I can tell you right now, you already know I'm not a very good person. But when I was in the central office and when I was the deputy in Charlotte, I can tell you right now, I literally prayed for a bad car wreck or a shooting on the west side to get us off the news site, or I was going to have to fire somebody. I'm not making that up, folks. I am telling you the truth. The rule of three's there. If you made 3 news cycles in a row, somebody had to go home. We needed to get off the cycle. And we know what could we do to get ourselves off the news cycle? Because eventually the story, it takes a life of its own, and we have to let somebody go. Now, and you don't want to get into that, because a lot of times, like Dr. Maraglia said, that principal inherited that mess, but it doesn't matter. And the principal that inherited the grade scandal, the making kids go home, the putting kids out of school scandal at Myers Park. The principal that inherited that, he thought he got away, got the job assistant superintendent for secondary, and I was with him on Wednesday in his new office, and Friday he announced his retirement. He didn't know on Wednesday that he was retiring on Friday. They reached out beyond the grave and got him. That's just the way it works, folks. They didn't. The new principal that replaced him hadn't actually gotten on the job yet. That's when Tom replaced Bill, and Dr. Maraglia will know who I'm talking about. And Bill had just gotten to Stonewall, to the the overflow ed center over on Stonewall, where we were. I was on the 7th and he was on the 3rd floor, and he didn't know on Wednesday he was retiring on Friday. That story reached out beyond the grave and got him. After he was no longer the principal there, it got him. But somebody had to go home. Somebody had to go home. You don't want that somebody to be you. Sometimes things are even out of your own control, but the things that are in your control, you need to deal with. And the sexual stuff is the biggie. Sexual harassment, sexual assault, rape, indecent liberties, that's the big stuff. Don't you get to the police as fast as your little legs will carry you, as fast as your fingers can dial the phone or get to your SRO. You get that to them, and then you call. The next call is to your person in the central office. But you make sure that you don't hold the bag, because this was going to reach out and get you. This woman in Colorado ended up serving 2 years in prison over this. That's exactly right. And that's what I'm worried about is going to happen in Charlotte. There may be some jail time for some people in Charlotte. So the notion here is don't sit on it. All right, so let me share my screen. We've covered our discussion board. This one right here, this lady I did the follow-up, she ended up getting 2 years hard time. The other things that are on our list to look at tonight are kind of big ticket items, and then we're going to talk about interviewing, and we're going to finish up with that tonight. We'll follow up on the session that I did Monday night. Charter schools are public schools. They operate more under the rules of private schools. One of the common misconceptions of charter schools is if a kid enrolls there and that the money stays, the charter school gets the money, and when they come back to public school, they don't get the money. As we know, because modified accrual accounting system, you get the money on 10 payments. You don't get all the state money at one time. It comes in 10 equal payments. So that can't be true. That's always a wives' tale that you will hear. Charter schools are a viable option. A lot of good folks work in charter schools. I would tell you that we need to embrace all of our brethren, whether it's charters or privates. We tear one another down, and the public is the one that hears all these bad things that we say, and it sticks to all of us. And so if you don't know much about charter school, that's a link. And there's a DPI website on charter schools that explains everything that you need to know about them. They've got a full menu over here. They've got all these different links, all these things. If you don't know, you need to learn. You need to learn something about them. For those of you who work in charter schools, we love you just as much as everybody else. Charters and privates are viable options for people nowadays. And so again, here are the things that you need to know about charter schools. And the last thing is, part of this course is about finance. And so here are the things that we know about public financing of schools going forward. Education will continue to be viewed as the key to economic growth. There's a growing mismatch between literacy and the labor force and the competency required for jobs. A lot of different things are happening in terms of school finance initiatives. There's even talk now of doing, the first private funded road in North Carolina is built by my house at Lake Norman. They widened 77, and it's a private partnership. And now they're talking, and so they get to collect tolls for the next 50 years on the roads, and they're very expensive, by the way. It's about $22 to go to Charlotte and back from my house. I live halfway between, I live at Lake Norman, so it's 20 miles to Charlotte and back, and it costs $22, except at rush hour, and then it costs about 30 just for one day to go down there and back. It's about $3 every 2-mile section or 3-mile section. It's very expensive, but the state didn't have to use the money. And so now there's talks that, bonds, but also private financing of school facilities like charter schools use, and then the district would pay them rent kind of thing. That's basically what charter schools are doing now. They privately fund their facilities. And so there's talk about that happening. So there's going to be a wide spectrum of those kinds of initiatives and experiments coming up. We know regional disparities of educational resources will increase. That was our second case study. We know that there's always going to be those disparities. Public school enrollments will increase. School enrollments will increase. Only 15% of jobs require diplomas. More than half will require post-secondary, and we have to prepare students for that. Equity issues will become the major problems faced by policymakers. That's why that's our second case study, because that's going to be the biggest thing in terms of the politics and policy is equity. And educational equity will continue to be redefined. Not in terms of access, but in terms of expenditures. That's how we determine equity now. And so there is pressure on the General Assembly to change some of their rules and laws. We keep revisiting Leandro. The West Ed people are putting pressure on that we're going to need to differentiate funds. And so I don't, one of these days when we teach Leandro, it may be we teach a different thing, and it may not be too long in the future. But these are the kind of things that's happening with school funding that we've touched on this semester. We've touched on each one of these. And so this is kind of a summary of that. All right. I'm now going to move into our last section for the evening. And before I do, I want to remind you, if I can make this work, I'm going to try to enter the student preview mode. I figured it would give me an error. All right, over here under my grades, make sure that you got all the things in here to get all of your points. And if you don't know if you've got them all, just simply look at this list. This tells you everything that you should have uploaded. A lot of you, missed one here or there. You did the work, but make sure you do your load and get your work in there. Let me get out of this before it freezes my computer. So make sure you've got it. Make sure you get your OMA in task stream. You need to have that done. If you don't have that, I won't let you go 604 this fall. Make sure that before August rolls around that you have that OMA in task stream for evaluation so that you can go to 604 this fall. All right, so looking under course overview, if you want to know your points, they're right there. You got to have 2,600 to get an A. And you can make 3,000. You actually can make about 3,200 if you do everything. So I gave you about a 500 point leeway there, 2,600 points. And you can check your points, and you can check under my grades to see what you're missing. Make sure you get everything in there. Main thing is get that OMA graded this summer so that you can jump into 604 with Dr. Sanders this fall. Anybody have any question on how many points it takes or where everything goes? We've got, let's see, Kitty's working ahead on her side, on her skip now. I would encourage you to do that as well. If you could knock out the skip and the cap in the fall, then the spring will be cake. Just having to do the SIOP, because you remember you got to do your folio in the spring. You got to finish it up. So get as far ahead as you can. Questions you have for me on that? All right, so now we're going to let our resident principals take over. And what I want them to do tonight, and they did this last semester, so hopefully they're not caught unawares. What I want them to talk about is what they look for when they're looking to hire somebody as an administrator to add to their team. Not teachers. We're not talking about that tonight. We're talking about you folks are wanting an AP job. And people are going out. I talk to people every day. I talked to one earlier today. He gave me some feedback on his last interview. They told him that he did great, but they had to take a transfer. We talked this morning, and or they had a person, you know, an experienced person that they had to take. But you know, that happens. But the notion here is if you were with us on Monday night, I did the interviewing section, went through the 4 types. All those materials are obviously in our shell, the different types of interviews that you will encounter. But what I want to talk to you tonight, let our resident experts talk to you tonight, is about what is important to them when they're looking to hire a member of their administrative team. So I'm going to start with either one that wants to, and I'm going to turn it over to them. And I'll even mute myself.
Okay, so I will start if that's okay. Can anybody hear me? Good. Am I good? Okay, cool. So I have attached in our folder for tonight's session some things about interviewing, but that would be like if you're just interviewing for teachers and things like that. But I wanted to also bring to you one of the things that I have put in there, and that would be something important to me. And that would be knowing how to how to observe and things like that. So if you, I don't know if I can able to share my screen or not, but I will do my best to see if, I don't know if Dr. Lamb has given it to me or not, but I'm gonna try. Can you see? Yes. So this is a sample or artifacts that are looked for to help me, teacher or guide me when I do a evaluation of a teacher. So I would want somebody who is willing to learn. For me, what I would do is I don't necessarily need somebody who knows all about the teacher observations and how to rate somebody, but somebody who is going to be able to sit down with me. I'm going to go in classrooms with you. We're going to look and see if we're rating people the same. And this is an example of some things that you can use to help you, to spark those interests, to help you with the teacher evaluation when you go in there. Honestly, this is not my original. I stole it from somebody off the internet. I don't know exactly, but it goes through and gives you examples of everything, each area within each domain in the teacher leadership or the teacher evaluation. So that would be just example of one thing. For me, another thing that's very important to me is trust. I need somebody that I can trust. I can teach you pretty much whatever else I need to teach you, but I need you to, have, knowledge of the laws and things like that, but I need somebody I can trust. Oftentimes I've been in positions where assistant principals will try to make their principal not look good because they think that's going to be their way to get a position, and it's not. Because people in the county office see that and they find out that that's the way you are. And so that is definitely a way that it will hurt you. If you think by trying to make your principal not look good is you think it's going to help you make you look good, and it is not. So that is something for me as that teammate. I'm also looking for somebody who's organized and is going to pay attention to detail, meaning that for me, I am a type A personality. I have in May, I review my summer to-do list. I know exactly what needs to be done. I assign it to my different assistant principals along with myself. And so I need somebody who's going to be very detail oriented as well, who's going to help contribute, who's going to meet those deadlines, who's going to know what needs to be done as well. And with that being said, somebody who, when they write an email, is going to be articulate, is not going to look like they don't know what they're doing. When they, write an email to a parent or to anybody else, I need somebody who's going to look at that to make sure that they are knowing that they are representing me as well as a school. I want somebody who's going to return phone calls daily, who's going to be able to talk to parents daily. And I need somebody who is not always going to be willing to say yes to me. And I know you're probably like, what are you talking about? I don't need somebody to say yes to me all the time. I need somebody who's going to help me to think outside the box sometimes. I don't need somebody who's just going to go along with every single thing I do because I'm not the end all be all. And I know that there are ideas that maybe I've not thought about. So somebody who's going to collaborate with me and is going to help me to take the school forward because your job as the assistant principal is to assist me as the principal. And together we are there to make the school look great and to be good. My assistant principals will always say, well, I'm here to do whatever you say. Not necessarily. I want you to be able to work with me collaboratively, and so that we can better the school and that we can make things happen for the greatness of our school. So that's some of the things for me. Dr. Baraglia?
Well, it's so funny where you said about the saying yes. That's definitely something that I don't want somebody that's always going to agree with me on everything. I think a good way for me to look at it is I would like somebody that could balance me out. I don't need a replica of me. Yes, you mentioned I'm organized. I meet deadlines. I want people who will do that, but I don't need a replica of me. I need someone who has different strengths from me so that we can be a very balanced administrative team. And that when we are talking about different ideas, that you're not just a yes man, that you can help look at it from different perspectives. And let's talk about, maybe that's not really a great idea. Maybe we need to approach it from a different angle, and just to have a professional conversation about it. That's what it's about. Even if you're the principal and you are the boss, the best administrative team is going to be a collaborative team that can work together and bounce ideas off of one another. Someone also who's willing to learn, but willing to work. I have seen had an intern at my school this year that just, I know this person is just not willing to put in the time and the effort it takes to be an assistant principal or to be a principal. You've got to be able, you're not some high and mighty person. You actually need to be more of a servant at that level than you even are at a teacher, at the teacher level, because you're having to look after your students and you're having to look after your staff, and you've got to be willing to do what it takes for that, and to kick off those high heels and do what needs to be done. I also would like somebody that has a sense of humor, because I have a sense of humor, and I know they talk about how in law enforcement, the dark humor, and sometimes you have to laugh at things and to get through it. Well, it's the same way in schools, and you probably already know that. And right now I'm in a situation where I'm with a lot of people that make me laugh on a daily basis, and it just helps us to get through some of those hard days. And that's something that's really important to me. But interestingly enough, Dr. Lamb, and I know you can relate to this, just knowing how things are in my district, I've never had a chance to hire an AP. There always have been placed.
Right.
So I've never had the luxury of
Yeah.
being able to interview and pick out someone that I would like to work with. So
That's
Dr.
becoming
Caden,
more and more prevalent, unfortunately.
yeah,
That's why we've added that fourth level beyond the principal interview is the superintendent interview now that we talked about Monday night, because many times it's not the principal who's doing the hiring. It's now the superintendent or the area superintendent.
exactly. They want to have that control.
Exactly. And yeah.
And I remember I only interviewed once for an AP position, because my other AP positions, I transferred to schools where I knew the principal and I knew I wanted to be there. But in my first one, I had to do a writing I don't even remember what I had to write about. Dr. Lamb, you remember who my first principal was?
I do.
Near and dear to my heart. He is a father figure to me. And I went in and he had me to write something. I don't even remember.
Yeah, but he was a school counselor before he's an administrator.
And no, that wasn't Mark. That was Dr. E.
Yeah, I know, but he was too.
But he that threw me for a loop. I wasn't expecting that. But then the interview was not an interview, it was a conversation, and we sat and talked for about 3 hours.
Yeah.
And so I know if I ever get a chance like that, not that I'm gonna make somebody sit there for 3 hours, but if we can just have a conversation and it's not even feeling like an interview, that's gonna make me feel like I've got somebody that I can work with, and we work very, very well together. And so I look back on some of my past experiences with things like that to help me think about what I want in terms of my administrative team. And remember that your administrative team does go beyond just your APs. It's your counselors and some of your social worker, if you have a social worker in your school, it goes beyond just your APs. And so as you are moving into roles where you're going to be interviewing and hiring these people, you want to think about things like that, because I know just at my school, our counselors are a vital part of our administrative team. They may not be in every single meeting and some of the confidential things we have to do, but we're making sure that we're touching base with them on a daily basis, because they are so integral to what we do every day for our children and for our staff. So those are some of the things that I think about what I want in an AP candidate.
All right.
And for me, I did have the luxury of picking my assistant principal. My former assistant principal actually retired in December. And so in Pitt County, what happens is the people who want to be an assistant principal, they go through a screening process. And then from the screening process, they go to a panel of principals who might are in the need of a assistant principal. And I had an intern, and I knew that she was going to kind of fit the need that I had. And so I encouraged her to go ahead and apply for the screening and things like that. And what I figured, I talked to my other assistant principal. I said, look, we can either go and take another assistant principal they give us, or we can have one that we've already been grooming for the past 3 years. What do we want here? And so I was able to, say to my assistant superintendent, this is who I want for my, my assistant principal. And she did say to me, well, she doesn't have a lot of experience. That's fine. That's good. It'll be fine. She's been working with me for the past 3 years. So it'll be fine. I mean, because I knew exactly how she had been trained. And I knew that it was exactly the way that we wanted it. It was, she was already part of the school. She already knew the culture of the school, which is very important to me as well. So,
what role did she play, Dr. Caton?
She was a teacher beforehand. Okay. And the thing is that it's very difficult for people to sometimes in Pitt County, if you're not a principal fellow, to get an assistant principal position unless you have a principal that is really going to bat for you. Dr. Lamb knows that, I hosted, an intern, and because, I hosted her and I was really able to get her out there and promote her, because in Pitt County, unfortunately, principal fellows are looked at top and foremost. I mean, I'm just being very honest. So I wasn't a principal fellow. I luckily had a principal who really helped me and promoted me and stuff like that. So
anyway. One other piece of advice that I would give as you guys are looking for positions, and that's a situation that it works out that Dr. Caton had a teacher on staff who was able to move into the position. When I was also looking for my first assistant principal position, I was really thinking about going back to the school that I had taught at. And the gentleman I was interning with told me he thought I should think long and hard about that. And I think it was some of the best advice I've ever gotten, because it would be very difficult to go back in a leadership position over people who you were friends with. And that might be something that you want to think about. Because, as teachers, how you talk about administrators. I did it. How there might have been some things that you didn't always do exactly the way you should. I did the same thing. And I'm very glad that I took his advice, because it would have ruined some of my relationships. And I'm sure I would have had some people that didn't have as much respect for me because they knew me as a teacher. And I went into a school that I did not know anyone. And of course I had to prove myself, and they had to figure out who I was and what I was about. But that might be something that some of you could be dealing with right now, and turning that over in your mind. That might be something you really want to think long and hard about. It was some very good advice that I'm glad that I heeded, if you don't have a situation like what Dr. Caton has right now.
Mm-hmm. But I think in the end, principals and the building level people are a lot more interested in trust and relationships and filling in the gaps and balancing out teams and those things. Now, I'm going to tell you that from the superintendent perspective, I'm going to relate it to the first year of the Andy Griffith show. In the first year, when Gomer was still on there, one of the first shows when Andy had to go to Raleigh, he, left Barney in charge. And so the first thing that Barney did when he left was he gave Gomer a gun and he deputized Otis to town drunk. Well, see, from the central office perspective, from the superintendent's perspective, the most important thing is that somebody not somebody not do that when the principal's out of the building. And so when you're looking for an assistant principal, too many times from the superintendent or the central office perspective, you're not worried about fit or trust or any of that. You're just trying to make sure that you don't hire somebody that's going to do something stupid. You go with the safer candidates, what I'm telling you. You go with somebody who may not be very good, but they're not going to do bad things. They're just going to hold it in the road if the principal's out of the building, especially when it's one AP deal, one principal, one AP. You'll go with somebody who's got experience, even if it's bad experience, but they don't do stupid things.
Mm-hmm.
They don't do like at Albemarle Road and ring the bell at 1:30 with no buses on the lot and have a riot running down Royal Avenue, hitting Albemarle Road, turning over cars. I mean, won't do something stupid like that. Won't give Gomer a loaded gun.
I was at Albemarle Road.
I know you were at the road. That's absolutely a true story. They rang the bell one day at 1:30. Wasn't a bus on the lot. Remember in Charlotte-Mecklenburg, they tripled the buses. And so your buses arrive just in time to pick up your kids. They don't sit on your lot, not at the junior high. And they had an AP that panicked and rang the bell at 1:30. They were fighting at lunch and couldn't get them stopped. So they just rang the bell, told them to go home, 1:30 in the afternoon. You imagine 1,100 kids rolling down Royal Avenue and hitting Albemarle Road. Wasn't a bus on the lot. That's back in the days where everybody rode the bus. Nobody drove to school, especially on that side of town. They didn't have cars, and they come rolling down Royal Avenue, which is their front driveway, right into Albemarle Road, and it looked like they'd won the national championship. Turned over cars, set trash cans on fire, knocked the windows out of the McDonald's. Yeah, that's what. So that may sound like a trivial thing, but trust me, if you're the area superintendent or the superintendent, stuff like that matters. That we believe that, so sometimes people say, well, I can't believe they gave that guy the job or transferred that guy or gal out that one. They're not very good, but they're steady. They're steady eddies. And so the steady eddies are going to be kind of in front of you. And that's one of the reasons I don't like the superintendent hires. The principals know what they need and are looking for people with talent and can be a member of the team and can move kids. The superintendent, most of them are looking for the steady eddies that won't ring the bell at 1:30 or give Gomer a gun. That they won't do anything, but they won't do anything wrong. Now, there's no way that you can't. That's not something that you can overcome, but you need to be seen as that person that we can hand the keys to. You need to present yourself as a dispositionally a mature adult, that you have emotional intelligence. I'm honest, I'm forthright, I'm dependable. I make good decisions. I'm not all over the place. You got to present yourself as being more than a steady eddy, but that you are not going to panic. You're not going to wet your pants first sign of trouble. That's what you have to do to get the superintendent to give you the nod. The principal's just told you what you got to do for them. I hate to say it, but I've hired people that I knew weren't going to be very good, but I knew they weren't, but I had enough good people to cover for them, and I knew that they weren't going to do something stupid, especially at a place where we maybe had a history of doing a couple stupid things. Sometimes you have to go with the safe choice sometimes to kind of rein things back in. So that's the notion here. All right. Good luck in your job endeavors. I know that some of you are interviewing for jobs this fall. If you need a letter, get in touch with Miss Wendy Turbyfield. She's W. Turbyfield, TURBYFILL @ and you know the rest. Wendy will provide you a letter that says you are a bona fide candidate that will finish the program in good standing, that you will finish in the spring. If you're interviewing for jobs now, of course, you can do that at Christmas if you're interviewing in the spring. I would encourage you to get out there. Again, don't interview for jobs that you wouldn't take just so you can find out what the questions are. Don't do that. But if you're interested in a job, I would say get out there if you're willing to go. It's a good time. A lot of older folks are retiring because of COVID. because of the upheaval of that. A lot of people are just done, and so there's jobs out there. I would say get yourself out there if it's something that you're interested in. But again, don't be interviewing just to get experience. That's not the principal's job. So that would be a good. Todd, you've raised your hand.
Yes, sir. I was wondering, is there a bias against or anything that could be looked at negatively about somebody that wants to get the master's degree, maybe go on to the PhD, but just continue working in their current place as opposed to moving into administration right away?
No.
Like once you have the degree, you're good at that point.
You're good. Nobody cares if you go now. I mean, in terms of employers, they don't care when you finish. They're just looking for your license. They won't know who you are. But no, that won't be frowned upon at all. We have probably 30% of our folks go on into the doctoral program and don't want to change jobs right now. Of our add-ons, he's got about 50 this fall, and most of those are ours. And so most of those people will not change jobs. They'll wait till after they finish the doctoral program. And so if you want to go to grad school, if you want to do what you're doing for a while longer, no, that won't hurt you at all. Won't hurt you at all.
Thank you.
And I encourage you, just like I encourage you, if you're ready, as I said, if you're ready, get out there. If you're not, there's nothing wrong with staying where you are. There's nothing wrong with having taught for 20 years. That's a great thing. You don't have to be the whiz kid that taught 3 years and was immediate assistant principal. You don't have to be that. You don't have to be that. You need to find your own pace. That's another thing that I would advise is find what's comfortable for you. Be who you are and what you want to do. I was actually having a conversation with a friend of mine just before class tonight about, you don't want to do this job. It's 80 hours a week. She has a family. She has a life. She don't need to do this. Well, I feel like I have this need. No. You do you. This is no fun in terms of the number of hours. If you're young and you have a young family, when you get old like me and you're an empty nester is when you spend 80 hours a week. But when you're young and family, don't do this. All colleges are the same. We have very few full-time and a lot of adjuncts. And our adjuncts are a lot better than the full-time people in my case. But that's the model now. So the full-time people end up doing everything. I've got doctoral students. I do tech. I mean, I've got, but see, I'm an old person. It's just me and my wife now. All these other things have come and gone in our lives, and we enjoy one another, and that's about it. And so it's okay to work 80 hours a week, but if you've got kids and you've got grandkids and you got all that, if you got that going on in your life and you've got other things and you have a healthy social life and interactions with friends and relatives, there's something to be said for that. Don't do it just because you think somebody thinks you ought to. Do what you want to do. You do you. I see our time is up. All right, next week. Again, our order next week will be Kitty's group, Heather's group, Matt's group, America's group. In that order. The two doctors will be running the resident experts since they're both principal experts. Next week's all about all the different facets of the principalship. All of them come to play next week. And so we will, they'll be running things next week, and hopefully that things will go as well as they've been going. I appreciate your time tonight, and Ashley, I will stay on with you. So I will see you all next week.
Bye.
See ya. Bye-bye.
Hey, I'm hoping you can still hear me.
I can. Let me